Have you ever walked away from a conversation feeling drained, replaying everything you said, and wondering why you agreed to something you didn't actually want to do? Or maybe you find yourself constantly putting others first, even when it feels like you're exhausted, overwhelmed, or even resentful. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. My name's Rick Cardwell. I'm a psychodynamic counsellor and a therapist. And today we're talking about something that quietly shapes your mental health, your relationships, and your self worth more than almost anything else. And that is boundaries. More specifically, what life looks like before you learn boundaries and what changes after you do learn boundaries. And trust me, the difference is profound. So, life before boundaries. Let's start with the before. Before you learn boundaries, life often feels like you're living for everyone else. You say yes when you need to say no. You prioritize other people's needs over your own, not occasionally, but constantly. You might tell yourself, I don't want to disappoint them, I should be nice, it's easier this way. But underneath that, there's tension. There's a quiet discomfort that builds over time. You might feel drained after social interactions, anxious about others, of how they see you or perceive you, and responsible for other people's emotions. You may feel guilty for even thinking about your own needs. And here's the thing, without boundaries, your identity, your self worth could start to blur. You become who others need you to be, not actually who you are. That creates emotional consequences. And when you don't have boundaries, a few things tend to happen. One of the first things, and I would say the most hurtful, the most emotionally damaging, is resentment builds. You give and give, but eventually something shifts. You start to feel unappreciated. You feel like you're taken for granted, even though no one actually forced you, it still hurts. Secondly, burnout becomes normal. You're constantly available, always helping, always responding, always accommodating, until one day you feel completely exhausted, mentally, emotionally, even physically. And then your self worth becomes external. So, what that means is if you're always trying to please others, your sense of worth starts depending on their approval. Did they like what I did? Are they upset with me? Did I say the right thing? It's like your value is constantly being evaluated by everyone else. Now, with that comes a hidden cost. Here's something people don't talk about enough. Not having boundaries doesn't just affect you, it also affects your relationships because you don't communicate your limits. People don't know where they stand. They may overstep, not because they're bad, but because nothing is clearly defined. And over time, relationships can become unbalanced. One person gives, the other person takes, and neither fully understands why things feel off. At some point, something usually happens. Maybe it's burnout, maybe it's a specific moment where you feel deeply disrespected, or maybe it's just a quiet realization that things just aren't right and I can't keep living like this. Now that's where boundaries begin, not as walls, but as clarity. Life after learning boundaries. So let's talk about this, the after. And no, it's not perfect. Setting boundaries can feel uncomfortable at first. You feel guilty, you might overthink, you might worry people will react negatively towards you, but something powerful starts to shift inside of you. So, what changes when you have boundaries? Well, the first thing that changes is you start saying the thing you actually mean. Instead of automatically saying yes, you pause, you check in with yourself, and sometimes you say, no, I can't do that, or I need some time, or even that doesn't work for me. And at first it feels strange, but then it starts to feel freeing and liberating. The reason for that is your energy is protected. You're no longer constantly extending yourself. You choose where your time and energy go, and because of that, you feel less drained, less overwhelmed, and more in control. Your relationships become healthier, and this might surprise you, but boundaries do not push people away. They actually create stronger, more respectful connections with people because now people know your limits, you communicate clearly, and there's mutual understanding as to where you stand and where they stand, and the right people that you have around you will respect your boundaries. And the ones who don't, they tell you something about themselves, something to think about. Secondly, or further, you develop self trust. Every time you honour your needs, every time you speak up, you reinforce something powerful. You say to yourself, I have my own back. And that builds confidence in a way that external validation never could. Seeking that validation from somebody else will never build your confidence. But building that confidence by having your own back is really important. This creates a difference in mindset because before boundaries, I don't want to upset them, and after boundaries, I don't want to abandon myself. The shift changes everything. Now, a really common fear in setting boundaries is what if people don't actually like it? Well, let's be honest. One of the biggest fears around boundaries is this: what if people get upset? And sometimes they will, because they were used to a version of you that didn't have limits. But that doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It means the dynamic is changing, and growth often feels uncomfortable, not just for you, but for others around you too. Now, what happens if you never learn boundaries? Because this is important. Because avoiding boundaries doesn't keep things peaceful, it just delays the consequences. Without boundaries, you continue to feel overwhelmed. Then resentment keeps building, your needs stay unmet, and your identity gets lost in other people's expectations of you. Now, over time, this can impact severely your mental health. That creates anxiety, burnout, emotional exhaustion, and even disconnection from yourself. So, boundaries are not selfish. Let's clear this up. Boundaries are not about shutting people out. They're about letting people know how to treat you. They're about protecting your well-being. They're about creating space where you can exist as your authentic self and not just as how others expect you to be. So, simple examples of boundaries, if this is new to you, boundaries can look like: I'm not available this weekend. I need some time to think about that. I'm not comfortable discussing that. I can help you, but only for an hour. They don't have to be harsh. They don't have to be malevolent or aggressive. They just have to be honest. Now, imagine two versions of your life. One where you continue to say yes to everything, feeling drained, overlooked, and disconnected from yourself. And another where you respect your limits, where your energy is protected, where your relationships are built on clarity and mutual respect. The second version starts with one thing: learning to set boundaries. So if this resonates with you, take a moment today to reflect. When in your life, or where in your life, do you need a boundary? It doesn't have to be big. Every one small shift can start to change everything. So if you found this helpful, make sure you like the video, follow or subscribe to the channel, whatever it is you need to do on this media, and please add some comments, comment on mental health, self-growth, and how that will help these videos go to further people, and they will get more content on building healthier relationships, on supporting the mental health and the self-growth. Remember, you deserve to feel heard, respected, and at peace, starting with yourself. So I'll see you on the next video, and thank you for watching.